Here's a good example of something that would get missed. So clearly ran out of fittings on this particular day for the vent pipe. It's punch list day. My least favorite day of the job is when I gotta make punch lists. We got drywall starting in a matter of a few days, and so I don't have much time to get it done. As much as I would rather do other fun things, this is one of those days where we gotta get through it. Punch lists have this magical way of killing momentum on a job and bringing things to like a snail's pace of completion. There's 3 different types of lists that you're gonna wanna make when doing your walkthroughs for your job. And the first list you're gonna make is a pre-check list. And that list is something that you're going to kind of keep in your Rolodex at all times. And you're gonna reuse that on every single job. And you're gonna, over your years, you're gonna add things, you're gonna take things away. But that list is all those call out items that typically get overlooked in the job site. So if you know that these particular corners always have problems, then you're gonna wanna make a note of that so that you always go and check out that particular item. The next thing is your material list. Material lists, I like to break them down by vendor or by trade or by both. You know, so there might be, for example, the drywaller might get the mud, but I might get the drywall. So if I need to get more drywall, then I'm going to make sure that I put it on my list at my vendor to get more drywall. But if I notice that we're gonna run low on mud, then I'm gonna make a note to remind the drywaller that, because he buys the mud, that, hey man, just so you know, before you show up, it didn't seem like you had enough mud. I just wanna make sure you got that covered. Oh yeah, okay, thank you for reminding. These types of things are gonna keep the job moving forward in a very efficient manner. When it comes to the labor side of the lists, this is probably the most important part. This is the part that is going to either kill momentum or keep it going. As I come into a room, I wanna start from the doorway opening and go all the way around the room. And this way, I tend not to miss anything. And right away, I come into here and I see we got one wire coming out of a switch box. Now I know right away, boom, that's red flag. There's something missing, because you're not gonna have a switch box. It's only gonna have one wire. So I'm gonna investigate that a little bit, and I'm gonna see what I got going on here. And what I can tell right now is I got a power feed coming into the switch, but what I don't have is I don't have anything coming out for the light. So I'm gonna wanna make a note of that. I'm gonna make sure that light for closet. And then I'm gonna take a look at that and I'm gonna say, okay, well, there's gonna be 2 lights in this ceiling. How long is that gonna take? If I feel like it's gonna take longer than 15 minutes, then I'm either gonna write 30 minutes next to there, or I definitely want to stop, think about how long is that process gonna take, and then put a number next to that. I like 15-minute increments. So I'm gonna put down 30 minutes to install that wire for the closet lights and then trim out the 2 lights. And I like to do it this way because that way it keeps things very meticulous and very simple. When it comes to my framing in particular, but I also like to use these little tags for other things as well. And I'll use like a roofing nail. You'll see these orange tags throughout the job, but I like to use them for carpentry. So I will put them on my list, you know, like for example, this one says task. Real simple, it just says out of plumb. And the whole point here is you've got when that tag was written, you know, obviously the job, but in our case it's A box or B box because we got 2 different sides to this tiny house. And then any additional notes, and then you'll see signed by. And then this just will stay, and the carpenters know this. And this is one thing that, you know, every job's gonna be different. Every contractor is going to be different, and it's important that your subcontractors get into a groove of your particular style of work. And in our case, I always tell my carpenters, you know, sign this after you fix it. One, then I know who did the work, and then just leave it. And I'll come by, pick up the tags. For example, here, see this one right here. This says nailing pattern was off. So I like a particular set of nails down my corners, and then it was signed. So they're really helpful because you can make a list for carpentry, but if you got these tags, it goes so much faster. Here's something that's kind of interesting. This is HVAC line sets, the copper lines for the air conditioner head, they need to be tucked in the wall and then ran up to come out of the wall, you know, more up here. I mean, obviously we're not going to have the AC coming out the wall down here, but if you don't fix something like this, the drywallers don't know. They're wherever this comes out the wall, that's what they're going to do. So you want to make sure that either you would get a hold of your HVAC guy for this, or you just do it yourself, tuck that up into the wall. And the only thing you really need to figure out is what the manufacturer recommends from down from the ceiling, and that's where you would bring that out the wall. This really isn't a punch list item, but this is definitely something that I like to point out because some people have asked me about it. Before we put the walls up, we put plastic down on the floor. And this plastic will stay on the floor until the end of the job. And then when we're ready to put the actual flooring in, we'll razor blade this stuff out of here. And then we'll have crisp, clean plywood as the day it was born. And that's something that helps tremendously when cleaning up, because with the plastic on the floor, it makes it really easy to sweep stuff up. I haven't had a chance to clean up this job, but clearly we're not ready for drywall if we've got a bunch of shavings and all sorts of crap all over the floor. Tools, obviously, they probably wouldn't be left behind, but the wood chips and stuff like that, sweeping up the job, maybe that's something you're gonna handle. But either way, it's gotta be put on the list, and I like to break that into rooms and do one room of square footage, figure out how long that's gonna take, and then multiply that for the rest of the job, so that you have a really good idea of how long it's going to take to do basic cleanup on the job. And that way it's probably the most boring thing you'll have to do, but at least you'll stay motivated by breaking that into small increments. Here's a good example of something that would get missed. So clearly ran out of fittings on this particular day for the vent pipe, and we need to get a coupling on there. So we'll want to make a list, and we'll put on the list material. We need 1 2-inch coupling, and then we'll want to put a 15-minute line item on the labor side of it so that we know how long and we don't miss that when we're adding up our stuff. This is something I wanted to just bring to our attention. We've got our wires that come into the panel. This is completely fine and ready for drywall. If we're going to just tuck our wires in as long as they're labeled, we don't need to put all the breakers in before drywall. But we would want to put on the punch list to put a piece of cardboard in here to protect that. Now, look at this. We've got wires that are not coming. They're supposed to be in the panel box, but they're not. So those will need to get our fittings, and we'll need to get those into the panel. And so that's something that we're going to want to put on the list. And, in my experience, putting those 5 Romexes into the panel should probably take 15-20 minutes. But because it's a 15-20 minute thing, just put 30 minutes on the list, and then that way you got plenty of time to get that done. Another thing that I'm looking, as I look up into the ceiling, is I'm looking to see if all of our hurricane straps or any of our joist hanger straps, I want to make sure all of that is done, and so I'm going joist by joist, slowly just kind of taking a look at all that. And then the other thing that I'm looking for is drywall backing. Here's a perfect example of that. So on this side, carpenters remembered to put drywall backing, and what drywall backing is you got a nail piece, something to nail the material to. But look on this side, there's nothing. So that's gonna have to go on our list, and it's probably gonna get an orange tag up there that says, put some backing. So you wanna definitely check all your drywall backing, because the drywallers, they're drywallers, they're not carpenters, and you let them do the drywall backing and, well, they might get it. Another thing I'm seeing as I look up into the loft ceiling, which already got some drywall, not all the recessed lights have been drilled through the drywall. So we're gonna wanna make sure that we get the rest of those drilled out, and I'll probably put 15 minutes for each of those lights down. And that way I got plenty of time, and I kind of know what that process is going to take. So right there, I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, and I think there's 2 over there. So it's 5 times 15. You're at 1 hour and 15 minutes already in just you know, finding drywall lights. So these are some things that I look for. There's plenty of others. You're gonna have your own lists, but hopefully you've understood now the methodology that I take into figuring out how to make these lists. See you tomorrow.